Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with an awesome new knife consult for you. In front of us is the Sergey Rogovets Vulture. This is going to be the second video in a series of videos about some Sergey Rogovets knives that I have on loan from my good buddy Josh Zinn. Thank you, Josh, for sending these along so that I can show these to the community. Sergey does not have a lot of videos on YouTube. I will say that my good buddy Austin over at Epic Snuggle Bunny did a series of great videos on some of his knives, and then a Maker's Spotlight recently where he talked about Sergey and his history. So, as I mentioned in the previous video about the Rogovets Rhino, Sergey is previously a jeweler who's been in the industry for about 20 years who decided to move on to making knives. And he brings a full handmade but extremely high precision and high quality knife to the market. And I didn't know much about him, so I'm very thankful to Josh to get the opportunity to handle 4 of his knives and bring them to you guys. And so let's go ahead and talk about this guy. This is the Vulture. As the name suggests, this is a wicked-looking, evil-looking hawk-billed blade right here. And Sergey mentioned to me that he wanted to bring this knife with a big hawkbill and a front flipper to the market because he felt that there was not a very good selection of high-end hawkbill blades, and he wanted to have his crack at it. Now, if you know anything about Sergey, you may recognize this blade shape. He actually adapts this blade shape on a few of his different knives. He actually has a knife called the Reaper that has a super long handle, and it locks up something like this, so it looks like a big scythe, and it's quite wicked. Sergey really has his own unique design language, and he strives to sort of be in a class of his own. And so we're going to go ahead and talk about some of the details, and we'll figure out what makes these knives so special. Let's go ahead and get some vital signs on this guy right here. Up front, you're looking at a 4-inch blade with about 3.8 inches of cutting length. You're looking at about 9.3 inches of overall cutting length. The handle length is about 5.3 inches with an effective grip area of 5 inches. So it's a rather large knife. So I'm going to go ahead and bring out another couple of knives here. I'll show you the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 and the Spyderco Para 3. So you can see the Vulture is bigger than either of these knives by a pretty big margin. I'll bring out my big knife right here. This is the Benchmade Crooked River. As you can see, these are very similar in overall size profile. So a very large knife here with the Vulture. And it certainly is quite the statement. Let's go ahead and break this knife down anatomically. Up front, you can see the big blackened hawkbill blade going on right here that is truly unique. It is really, really deadly looking, and I really like it. I wouldn't say that this is the ideal everyday carry blade shape or appearance, but it is certainly unique in the world of knives. I don't really know of another knife that looks quite like this, and it's really, really awesome. As is designated on the inside here, you can see, maybe if I get the lights to do it, yeah, there we go, that the blade is actually done in 3V steel. So a high-end steel that's known to be very tough. This looks like either a Cerakote or a DLC finish right here, and so it's going to be able to protect that 3V steel. He's got a little accent pieces going on with these holes in the blade that appear to be chamfered, and the chamfers are polished, and so they give a nice little visual pop. The lines of the grinds are quite nice, and you can see them stand out from the distressed finish. The grind here is a flat grind, it feels like. I think this is a flat grind out to the tip right here. And boy, oh boy, what a wicked, wicked edge. Something that I have noticed is that he shines up those edges very, very nicely. It certainly stands to his credit as a jeweler that every single detail on this knife is really looked over, and we're going to see that as we continue to go through the knife. As I mentioned a bit earlier, this is a front flipper. This is a bit of an awkward front flipper. If you ask me, it's not quite as easy to actuate as something like a Gareth Bull or something like that. But once you figure out that you need to move your finger out of the way, if you keep your finger right there, it will hit it a little bit, almost like a friction folder. But if you manage to have a big enough hand and you can get your finger out of the way, it will open and lock up. You can also do the reach forward and do this sort of a thing if you have strong hands. I really don't want to drop it on the video. So in any case, this thing runs on ball bearings, so it has a very, very smooth pivot. We're moving back and talking about the pivot. As I mentioned in the previous video, Each pivot that Sergey makes is actually, it appears to be very similar, but he hand turns each one of these pivots on a lathe. And so each pivot for each knife is custom fitted to each knife. And it's quite an amazing thing to think about, that each knife has that level of attention to detail. Here you can see he's done a copper pivot collar to match this full-length copper backspacer. Yes, copper, and we'll get into that a little bit. Speaking of the fact that it's copper, I didn't give you guys a weight on this guy. All of his knives really put form above function in terms of the weight here, 8.3 ounces, so not in any way a very light knife. It's not quite as heavy as the little Rhino over here, but it is certainly a heavy, heavy piece. The action is extremely smooth. As you can see, it's easy for me to actuate. Once you disengage the lock, that scythe-like blade really does fall close under its own weight. It's a very nice action. And he has the detent tuned very nicely for a front flipper. Again, you can do it that way. I got it that time, so that worked pretty well. Very, very nice action and detent. All of the knives that he has, I've noticed that that is done quite well. Moving back to the handles here, these are milled pieces of titanium. This looks to be some sort of interesting Cerakote type finish with a black and white theme going on. Very, very nicely done. It feels great in the hand. It provides a little bit of traction, and you know that this is hand done. Something I need to emphasize about these knives is that no piece of this knife was produced by a CNC machine or a wire EDM or anything like that. The way that this knife was made is he drew this on a piece of paper, and then he went and he cut out these pieces of metal and he hand finished every single bit of this. Like I said, he turns his own pivots, he grinds and does the blades, he does the handles, he does the inserts, he does all these things by hand with no CNC work, and it's just very, very impressive how perfect these knives are considering that. I've seen a lot of makers say that they're hand making their knives and they have these sort of issues here and there, but these knives are pristine and beautiful, and it really is a testament to his eye for perfection. The backspacer, as I mentioned before, is full length, and it's got this bamboo appearance, and it is certainly copper. It makes for a beautiful contrast to this otherwise black and white knife. It's quite nice to look at. It looks like a spine going on here, honestly, and you know I'm going to like that because I am in fact a spine surgeon, so I think that that's really cool. The texturing is quite nice and extremely unique, and then he's got his signature, as I showed, on the inside on that copper, which has been patinaed and everything. So really, really spectacular work going on here. This is certainly more along the lines of an art knife. I hesitate to say fantasy knife because I don't really like that term. That makes me think of gas station knives. But this is really super high quality, you know, artistic interpretation of a hawkbill knife made with the precision of a jeweler. Handmade, absolutely beautiful, and really well functioning. One thing, you know, even down to things like a lock bar insert. This is a hardened D2 steel lock bar insert, and so not only did he have the sort of extreme, and I should say his Instagram handle and website are Extreme Addiction. He has an extreme nature to his knives, but also a functional and useful bent to them, and so I really do appreciate that. Well, that's all I really have to say about the Vulture from Sergey Rogovets here. Go ahead and click like and subscribe to my channel. Leave some comments down below about what you think about this crazy blade right here. Go ahead and check out Sergey on his Instagram, like I mentioned, Extreme Addiction, and his website, extremeaddiction.com, where he has more information about each one of these knives. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, guys, this is Dr. Frunkey saying take care.